Welcome to AgriMinds, the podcast where we explore the intersections of personal growth and professional success in the ag industry. I'm Kacee, your host. Thank you for joining me as we dive in to the different strategies and insights that will help you level up your life and career. From mental health to leadership development, we're going to cover it all. So sit back and get ready to grow with AgriMinds. Welcome to another episode on the AgriMinds podcast. I have a fan favorite returning back with me today, Michelle Miller, also known as the Farm Babe. Welcome back to the AgriMinds podcast.
Thanks for having me.
If you missed it, Michelle joined me on the very first episode on the AgriMinds podcast, and we talked about paving your own way within the industry. And some feedback that I got from her episode were from people who weren't in ag or didn't come from an agriculture background. And they felt really empowered and they felt really excited to hear from someone who obviously has made a successful business in the industry, advocates for us, and has become a wealth of knowledge. And so today, Michelle, I wanted to bring you back on and kind of do some myth busting. And it's going to be a pretty casual conversation. And so I'm really excited to dive into this. But just before we get started, in case someone missed the first episode or hasn't heard of you before, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Michelle Miller, known as the Farm Babe on social media, and I'm an advocate for agriculture, working to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers. So I do a lot of myth busting when people have questions or concerns around the food supply. I work to give science a bigger voice. So lots of science communication and education. And so I'm a keynote speaker, author, social media influencer. I'm just starting my own podcast myself, so add that to the resume of things I do. But yeah, just taking advantage of any media platform I can to share the story of agriculture and the real truth about where our food comes from and how it's produced and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you've got some really awesome content as well. So if you get a chance, go check out the Farm Babe on social media, because even though I've been in the agriculture industry my entire life, there are so many things that I learn and I'm like, wait, that's how you do that? That's where this comes from? Oh, we don't actually do that. And so I love seeing your stuff talking about, like you said, kind of like those myth busters around, like, this is what we do here. There aren't actually hormones there. This is why we do it this way. And so today, just kind of continuing on that myth busting journey, but more so around the personal infrastructure, I think would be kind of where I wanted to hang out today. So back to what I mentioned just a second ago, some of the feedback that I've gotten from listeners on your episode, number one on the AgriMinds podcast, was we felt really empowered when we heard her episode. We felt like, wow, someone who's not from the agriculture industry or wasn't born into it can make a way, can enter in with welcomed, open arms, and really just make a name for themselves and find a home here. And I thought to myself, wait, did you not feel that already? And so I wanted to just start off there, because I grew up in ag. I don't know anything other than being in this industry. And so one of my first thoughts was, is this a cult that I was born into that I didn't know anything about? And can people enter into this industry as easily as I think that they can, or is it kind of a struggle? What's your personal perspective on that?
Yeah, I definitely think it can be a bit of a struggle to get into the industry. And I do feel like it's kind of the good old boys club sometimes, right? And I mean, anybody can get into the industry. Anybody can break into it. But I think that it is easier or more difficult for some people to give an example. So I went to college in Los Angeles and I actually majored in like a fashion type career. I worked for Gucci on Rodeo Drive. I was about as fashionista, big city as you could be. And then I ended up dating a farmer and I moved to rural Iowa and became a farmer with him. So I went from downtown LA, working for Gucci in Beverly Hills, to raising sheep in a town of 1,000 people in Iowa. Right. So my tagline is rodeo to the rodeo, but I understand what it's like to be on both extremes, where when I was a city girl, I believed every myth under the sun. Then I became a farmer and started debunking those myths and built an entire platform around bridging this gap and myth busting these topics. So I just remember when I first moved to Iowa and I was, dating this farmer or whatever, and I would walk in somewhere and like to a bar or restaurant or something, and nobody would know me. And instead of like greeting me politely, and it's like, and I also, it's like, I think sometimes when you're in a small town or like in a farming community and you like go out, you just kind of put your hair in a ponytail and a sweatshirt. And here I'd walk in with like a cute outfit on, or my hair would be curled, or like, just, like, who are you? Like, that's literally like the reaction I'd get is, who are you? And I'm like, hi, I'm Michelle. Nice to meet you. Like, normally when you meet somebody you don't know, you say hi, say, who are you? But I'll never forget that day. She goes, who are you? And I go, I'm Michelle. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Right? Michelle what? Michelle Miller? Oh, are you related to so and so Miller? And I was like, no, I don't have any family here. What are you doing here? I was like, oh, my boyfriend lives here. Oh, who's your boyfriend? Doug Sass. The school teacher? No, that's his cousin Mike. Oh, we don't know him. And then they just snubbed their noses away at me. And I'll never forget that day because I was like, so just because you don't know, like, I feel like people like, that family and this family, and like, that that's a good person and that's a bad family, everybody's drama. And when all of a sudden somebody comes into it, you're like, who are you? What are you doing here? And it's like, believe it or not, people are interested in what we do in agriculture. And yeah, I fell in love with this industry and the people behind it, even if that woman was rude to me that day. But I'm not the only one that shares this. I think a lot of people I've talked to that are entering into ag without an ag background feel the same, and they share a lot of the same things. And I think a lot of times too, when you're reading comments on social media or whatnot, like, farmers are sometimes disconnected from the disconnect. Like, they're just like, why are these people so stupid? And it's like, have you ever gone grocery shopping in Los Angeles? Like, your head will spin. Like, it's bullshit. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, they don't understand farmers, but farmers, like, urban people don't understand farmers, or farmers don't understand urbanites either. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely this disconnect that I'm pretty passionate about bringing closer together.
I think farmers don't always understand farmers too. Like, I know,
Right.
like in our very small town, I know everyone that walks into our local diner. If we're there having lunch or breakfast or whatever, and somebody new comes in, we're like, who's that? And we're whispering, like, we don't know them, like, who are they? Blah, 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 blah. And, I catch myself doing that same thing because it's
I
just,
know you do. They all do.
it's out of the ordinary. And I don't
I
think
know.
I don't think most of the time it's malicious. I think we're just genuinely curious because it's so not common, right? And so, that's why I love this conversation we're having today, because I feel like, not that you're the outsider, you're just coming from a very different perspective than I am. And so this
Hmm.
is us just trying to like understand both sides and bridging the gap, which I feel like these types of conversations happen around politics, around race, around different cultures or religion, but it doesn't really just talk about like human to human. We just come from a different culture. So how do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, if I go down south to visit my grandparents and they lived in Louisiana, so New Orleans. And here I am, this country bumpkin from West Central Indiana. I clearly look different from a Southern farmer than a Northern farmer, right? Like, you can just
Yeah.
tell,
There is
oh,
definitely a difference.
yeah, like, we're all in the same industry. We have the same occupation, but we're just different versions of it. And so, like, even just that is so
Oh,
funny.
totally.
I don't even think we understand our own kind sometimes. And so to think that we, one, can be open-minded enough to look at different versions of who we are, right? Like, talk about like farming practices. Oh, you're a conventional farmer versus the no-till farmer versus organic versus not. Like, even that is like almost cult-like as well. And so I can totally see where people outside of the ag industry are like, do I have a place here? Is there a spot?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the different appearances of farmers in different regions, because I was a farmer in Iowa, but now I live in Florida, right? And so tomorrow I'm going to the Florida Farm Bureau convention, and I tend to go every year, at least once or twice a year. But it's funny because you walk into the room like in a Southern farm convention, and all the women are in like Lily Pulitzer or Southern Tide, and all the men are in like seersucker or polos, like colors, a lot of guys in fishing shirts, you know, like all this funny stuff. And then you go up north and yeah, they're like t-shirts, ball caps, you know, like dirty jeans, or so you have like the khakis in the south versus jeans and ball caps up north versus cowboy hats and belt buckles in Texas. You know, isn't it funny how we're all in the same industry, but we're all different? Um, yeah, it's funny.
I love the fashion side of this too, because like I remember
I
when I
have a
worked,
fashion background.
I think it's so funny because when like very first started my sales career, it seemed like, okay, first of all, I was the only female on every team that I've been on basically. And so when you get like a company t-shirt or like uniform or whatever to wear, like branded apparel, it seemed like the only options that they had for me were polos. And that just it didn't quite fit me right. Like I'm not a tiny person, and so things hug areas they shouldn't be hugging. And like I felt very self-conscious going to the farm because I'm like, am I not being modest enough? Like, you know what I mean? There's like a lot of concerns. And so like I was trying so hard to convince my boss, like, I need something other than a polo, like dressier than a t-shirt, but not a polo. Like, what are my options? And like, it is so hard to find branded apparel that fits multiple body styles and still look
I know.
but still casual enough to be on farm. And I remember we had a coworker from Australia, and he was starting up, selling our product over there. And I remember him coming over and he, noticing that our entire team was wearing a polo. And he's like, what is with the polo? That's a golfing shirt. Why are you wearing that to go on sales calls? And ever since then, I'm like, that's so true. Why are we wearing polos? Anyway, total tangent there, but it just reminded me, like, yeah, why do we do that? Like, can we not come up with something a little different? A golf polo to wear on these.
It
Anyway,
looks nice. It's a classy color, you know, whatever. It's everybody can do it. Yeah, men, women, it's easy. Yeah.
yeah, I love it. Well, something else that you mentioned was, yeah, it's tricky to get into this industry. But something else that I know a fear of mine was, and I think several people who've been in situations like me of growing up on the farm and being in this industry, and that all we ever knew was agriculture. If we left the industry, would we be welcomed back? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. You tell me because I never, I've never been in that situation. So I feel like people would always be welcome back, especially because it's usually family farms. I feel like most of the time they would say, I think a lot of times, and this is what I've heard from multiple family farms, is like our parents' generation. My parents are late 60s, early 70s, and they would tell us, like, or just what I hear from other farm families is like, go out and get a degree, like, see what else is out there. Like they almost kind of encourage their kids to leave the farm and try something different. But then most of the time they do come back and they're happy that they come back. But like when they don't come back, a lot of older generation farmers that I hear, they say, we did it to ourselves. Like now our kids don't want to take over the farm. And now, well, and a lot of next generations are going, well, I saw my dad struggle so many years. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. And so it's kind of like, we need to keep our next generation interested and excited about it. But yeah, it's I don't know. What's your experience been like when you left and came back?
Well, I've never really left the industry and came back, but I did leave some ag companies. So let me back up a little bit. I left working in an ag company and I left to go work for a farm and home store. So this farm and home store had 175 locations throughout the Midwest. And I was working in an office doing purchasing and forecasting. And so I felt removed. Like if you looked at my resume, yeah, my customers were client or were farmers. They were in the ag industry, but I was so far removed from them. So that's only really my experience. But I think I've always been scared to try it. Like I've been scared to leave the industry because, oh, that's a gap on my resume, or what does
Oh
that say
yeah.
about my career that I I've been in equipment sales or seed and fertilizer or, whatever ag related topic. And then I left and went and worked, in some, let's just use fashion because that's your thing. Like I left and worked at a fashion company for 2 years. And then I tried to come back in and sell seed. Like, what does that say about my career? Like, what kind of questions are going to be asked? What kind of dependability do I show? Like, did I lose relatability? Did I lose the connection? And so I think that's been a fear of mine. And I think that's probably held other people back as well of like, man, I really want to try opera, or I really want to try making stained glass windows, or like some random thing that isn't anything related to ag. And so like I think that's held us back a lot because this is what we've known. What if I leave? Is there a way to come back? What's that say about me? And I don't know the answer to it. It's just
I
a thought I have.
I feel like you'd be welcome back. I feel like a lot of people have done that, and I feel like a lot of people have come back, and I feel like that's actually pretty normal or standard for the younger generation to go off to college, get a degree, try something else, and come back. And I feel like they're always welcome. That's just been my experience with others sharing their stories.
Yeah, I don't feel like they wouldn't be welcomed. I think it's just a fear. But
Yeah.
something that I'm curious about is like why someone wouldn't want to come back. And you made a really great point of um someone leaving the farm and going experiencing life off the farm and then coming back and then potentially taking over the farming operation. But there are so many generations that don't want to take
Yeah.
over the farm. And this one I have really mixed feelings about because I wanted to take over the farm and it wasn't an option for me.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I
Interesting.
mean, if I had billions of dollars, yeah, I could absolutely figure out how to make it work. But then you've got other, like neighboring farms whose like doors are wide open and says, "Kid, we want you to come back to the farm. We have a place for you. We had the systems in place. We've got, the finances to be able to afford you full time." And they're like, "No, I don't want to." And I always like to ask like, "But why?" And some of the things that I think are going on is that generation didn't make the farm look appealing. And I think it was you. I don't remember. Somebody said, "Let's make farming sexy again." And I'm
That was me.
pretty sure that was you. And I'm like, you're so right. Like if I look at my parents and their peers on other farms, it doesn't look appealing. Like you have no 401k. You tell me that you can't afford to take a vacation. You're telling me your body is wore out. Like, what's the appeal to come back to the family farm at that point?
Yeah, and I feel like the number one reason why people do it is because of family, because of the next generation and the pressure to take on with the kids and the family. And it's like, well, oh my God, I'm fifth generation. Like I have to keep going. And I think a lot of it too is like when you're born into farming, like you just love it. It's part of your blood. And so you can go out and try something new, and then people always come back because it's like who we are. It's in our blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I love the fact like so many people are coming up with these really creative ways of staying in the industry and it not looking exactly like a farmer, right? Like I knew I wanted to help out on our farm. I knew that I wanted to be involved in ag. I wanted to help other farms, but I just didn't know how to do that. And so being the ag coach is my way of saying I can still serve our industry. I can still be related to what's going on and stay relevant, but I'm doing it in a way that doesn't look traditional, and I love that. So what other really cool jobs have you seen in ag that are kind of non-traditional? They're not the standard farmer.
Well, I think something like what I do is more the social media influencer role. I think is unique. Like just creating content around agriculture. I think there's a lot of great media opportunities, and there's just anything with technology in an office, like development of new products or software or technology, mechanics. the cloud data, all that good stuff. I think there's just the sky's the limit. And that's what I think is so amazing about our industry. And then coming up with new ideas, you talk about like fresh produce with improved packing or shipping systems, logistics, warehousing, all sorts of stuff. I mean, this industry is always growing. Veterinary science, genetics, plant genetics. Oh my gosh, like think about what you love. Is it science? Is it chemistry? Is it business? Is it tech? And there's a role for us here in agriculture. And I think that's a really beautiful story to share for people that do want to get into the industry, is that we do have to be accepting because it does require sciences. I mean, this is a STEM career field, and there is, there's a place for everybody in all different roles. That's what's so great, is the diversity of ag.
Yeah, I think that's so, so cool. And I think that's one of the biggest myths, right? Like I've talked to so many people who are from urban areas or weren't from the ag industry, and they are like, I didn't realize that agriculture didn't mean farmer. Or there are so many students that I talked to who were like, yeah, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. My parents are farmers, and so I don't really want to be in ag because I don't want to be a farmer. And it's like, but wait, there's so much more. And I think that's the biggest myth. And I even remember back in high school when I was in FFA, and people were talking about like, okay, what extracurriculars can I be a part of? And they're like, oh, I can't join FFA because I don't have a farming background, or I don't know anything about ag. And I don't know if it was legally changed or if it was just like a rumor at the time, but we talked about FFA standing for Future Farmers of America, and they're like, actually, we're not going to say that anymore because we don't want to limit the things that we teach and the resources and the opportunities that people can take advantage of by being in this program for just people who think it's just about being a farmer.
Yeah, it's FFA is so much more than just being a farmer. And I don't fault them for making the change. I don't think that it really matters much though, because I feel like the perception regardless is still going to be FFA. They still have the same corduroy jackets, the same teachings, the same leadership. I mean, I love FFA, but it's whether you call it FFA or National FFA Organization or whatever, it's like, is it really, it's still the same thing. So I don't know if the name really matters that much as it is, just talking about all the opportunities that we have available to us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I've seen so many rural schools invite other schools that are like neighboring because obviously the funding may not be there, so they can't afford to have a department at each school, and so they're doing a lot of co-ops. And I just think it is so awesome to try and get as many people involved in those types of organizations as possible. And I know that it wasn't offered at a school not too far down the road from me, and I remember someone who was in that school saying like, oh, must be nice, like we didn't even have FFA at our school. And I'm like, but look at all the, like, you lived and breathed the farm and the 4-H, and there were options for you. So just because you weren't in FFA doesn't mean that you're not qualified. And I think that's another big myth too, is that just because you missed out on maybe that one program or some of those opportunities, that you aren't somehow equal to someone who did. And another thing in addition to that would be like college, right? So I didn't participate in livestock judging. I was not in a sorority. I didn't participate in a couple of the other like well-known agriculture things. And I don't think that makes me less qualified. And I look at people who did participate in them and would say that they didn't really take advantage of them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's everybody's got their own experiences, and there's so many different facets of it. So yeah, just because one person did livestock judging and one person didn't doesn't mean that you are more or less qualified. Like I raised cattle for, I don't know, like 7 years, and I came to it from nothing. But there's always, what's great about our industry is there's always something new to learn every single day, whether you are brand new as a student in high school or you've been doing this at 80 years old, you can still learn something new. So it doesn't really matter like what kind of background you have. You can continue to learn, just having good mentors in place and just good experiences. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for 4-H and FFA, but and there's great leadership that comes out of those programs. But like if you don't do that, you're going to be just fine too. Usually, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not somehow less qualified. Like maybe someone got exposed to an opportunity that they wouldn't have had they not joined, or maybe they did learn something, but it doesn't mean that you aren't qualified or that you don't have a place here or that you still don't have something awesome to offer just because you didn't participate in something like 4-H or FFA. I did not participate in 4-H. And when people find out that, they're like shocked almost because they're like, wait, you've been in ag your entire life. Why didn't you participate in 4-H? Well, it's because it was too far away from our farm. And my parents were like, you
Yeah.
need to pick one thing. We live too far away from town for you to be running all over the place. You get to pick one thing to do. And the one thing that I picked to do was FFA. And so I've never been in 4-H in my entire life.
Yeah, and I was in 4-H, but I didn't grow up on a farm. So how funny is that? So like here I
Yeah.
was in 4-H. I never I showed my birds, like I showed my artwork. Like there's a lot more to 4-H than just showing livestock too. And so yeah, I was in 4-H and my friends were farm kids growing up, but like I didn't come from that. But so yeah, sometimes though you hear about these kids that are in 4-H and they show livestock. Well, they have like that one pig, right? Like their parents are like, we're going to get you this steer and you're going to learn how to show a steer. And that's their only steer versus, or like maybe they have a couple, like very small. On the flip side of that, you could throw them to a commercial scale cattle farm and they wouldn't know how to finish out beef properly and nutrition and everything you need to know about being a professional beef producer. And vice versa. Like I raised beef commercially. I wouldn't know the first thing about how to show. I mean, I can use my common sense and be like, that's a good looking steer or a sheep or whatever. But they don't have to. You don't have to be one or the other. You can learn something new every day in all different facets for sure.
Oh, these are such good myths that I just don't feel like people are talking about. Does anything else come to mind for you when you think about like common misconceptions about the people within our industry or people trying to get into or out of our industry?
Yeah, it's just funny how there is such a divide. I think a lot of farmers are disconnected from the disconnect, and I just encourage them just as much as we try to connect with our urban consumers that buy our products. I think it's just as important that we understand them, that we as agriculturalists take the time to go grocery shopping in Los Angeles and to visit New York City. And I think these breakthrough conversations always get farmers kind of excited. Like I've heard tons and tons and tons and tons of stories where a farmer is on a vacation or they're on a flight or they're visiting a city and somebody says, what do you do? And like, I'm a farmer. And they're almost like, wow. Like I think farmers have to remember that as much as they're just kind of like, this is all, that's all I've ever done. And the amount of times that I hear a farmer say, I'm just a farmer. You said it earlier. You're like, I'm just a country bumpkin from Indiana. You're not a freaking country bumpkin. Like you're not just a farmer. Like farmers always undervalue themselves. And it drives me crazy because I guarantee you, and it's happened to me now too, when I go back to downtown Chicago or back to downtown LA, where I used to live for 12 years, now and my friends that have known me forever, they're like, oh my God, you guys, meet my friend Michelle. She's so cool. She's a farmer. And when I moved to Iowa and I became a farmer, all of my friends from LA came to visit. All my friends from Chicago came to visit. They were so enchanted by the fact that I was being a commercial scale farmer. And I was like, you guys, like I lived in a beautiful condo on Lake Michigan. I lived in a beautiful apartment right on the ocean in Florida. Y'all never came to visit me. Now I'm in Iowa and y'all come to visit. And they're like, yeah, I've never been to a farm before. Like my friend from Los Angeles came to the farm and she was like, what was that? What was that? I'm like, what was what? That. I'm like, that's a bullfrog. And they just like that, they don't know. And then she's looking up at the stars. I've never seen stars like this. And they love it. And I think we have to connect with them and help them see the beauty. She's, oh my God, what was that? What's what? Those are crickets. Like she's never been outside of LA. And so but people find it really interesting. And I think a lot of times farmers, when they tell people in an urban area, I'm a farmer, they should wear that as a badge of pride. Like, it's not, I'm just a farmer, it's I'm a freaking farmer. And without farmers, we have nothing. And we have to celebrate farmers and ranchers. The clothes on our back, it's like we think about the first responders, right? Like COVID hit and everybody says, oh, first responders, as we should, right? Like the military, doctors, cops, firefighters, whoever you want to think of as like a teachers. But like, people don't, where's the farmer discount? You know what I mean? Like without farmers, the military can't fight those battles without the uniform on their back that started from a farm. You know what I mean? And it's like we owe everything to farmers. So what drives me crazy is when somebody says, I'm just a farmer, I'm just a country bumpkin. I'm like, no, you're way more than that. I talked to somebody the other day that said, oh, we're working with this museum and they're doing this ag exhibit and they're so excited, we're going to do this and it's going to be this fun agriculture exhibit at this museum. And the woman who was putting it together that worked for the museum, she said, yeah, so I think we're going to get like some pitchforks and some bib overalls for the kids to wear. And to which the farm sponsors of the exhibit said, with all due respect, ma'am, like we want people to know that this is a STEM career, that farmers are not just pitchforks and bib overalls, that we are educated people, members of society that use technology and innovation and science and chemistry and biology and everything that farmers do, meteorology, you name it, we do it. And farming is such an amazingly beautiful science that we have to advocate and share and help people realize that we're not bib overalls and pitchforks. And then the woman at the museum was kind of like, oh, yes, oh my gosh, yeah. And it's just like the perception versus reality is like, we have to connect and we have to wear our industry as a badge of pride. Go shopping in LA, like go grocery shopping, talk to people and realize the disconnect. And then you'll have the same passion for bridging the gap as somebody like me, because I come from that opposite side. And then I came into ag. So people that are born into ag, I encourage them to do the same, like go to New York City and just talk to people. And I guarantee you, people want to hear your story and they want to talk to you and they want to learn from you because they don't ever get the opportunity. The only thing they hear about is, I watched a vegan animal rights activist video and I think that it's all factory farming and I heard GMOs were bad. And it's like, have you ever explored the other side of that argument? No, didn't think so, because they've never talked to a farmer.
Yeah, that is such good stuff. One of the things that came to mind for me was the line between being humble and being proud. And like you said, like, yeah, you should be proud of what you do and being in the industry. And I think we don't know how to do that.
I know there's a lot of truth
Like,
to that.
are we braggy? Are we like
No,
trying to push it?
no.
There was this post in a Facebook group that I'm in of this girl who moved from California to Indiana, and she took a picture of a combine out shelling corn in a field, and it was like this beautiful landscape picture. And the caption was, we just moved here from California and da 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 da. And I, got to meet this farmer, and she was like totally praising the farmer, and she's just like, you folks from Indiana are totally taking your state for granted. Like, it's beautiful. Like, this is a landscape that I've never seen before. And you
Yeah.
get to experience this every single day. And so many people in the comments were like, we don't take it for granted. We love this. That's why we're here, and trying to keep it a secret and to keep you out.
Yeah, some
But,
truth to that too,
it's
for
like,
sure.
that's also I don't know if misconception is the right word, but I do feel like sometimes people feel like maybe I don't want to share with them what I'm doing because, like, it isn't a secret. That's something that we don't want people to impose on, or like, I don't want people to necessarily come out to where I live and start building houses. I live here because I don't want to see other houses.
That's
And
true.
or maybe like farming practices. There's certain farmers that I've met in my day who have the secret sauce figured out. and they don't want to share it because that's what's giving them that competitive edge against other farmers. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts around that?
There's definitely a lot of truth to that for sure. And also the mainstream media, I think, does a interestingly good, well, it depends on how you define good, but um, I think the mainstream media makes farmers look really sexy and cool. Like if you think about Farmer Wants a Wife or Chris Soules as The Bachelor or Yellowstone, like all these shows, Clarkson's Farm, great show. I think farming is being more and more portrayed in the mainstream media, but it's also we're losing 3 acres of farmland every minute to urban development. And so we also, there's a fine line, right? Because we want to share our stories and we should, but then we also kind of keep out the developers, right, that are trying to encroach on us and take the land. And you look at something like California fighting for water rights, or creating so many regulations for us down here in Florida. There's a lot of challenges on, and that's Nate, that's across the board. But I mean, I definitely think we should still keep talking about it. I don't think that should deter us. And if anything, maybe it'll raise more awareness on just how precious it is, and raising awareness on like education is important, the comment section, so that we know what we're up against, so we're not just blindsided one day. But like yeah, I know I have friends that live out in Montana, right where Yellowstone, where that show takes place, and oh god, have their property values skyrocketed. It's like, it's the more people realize, hey, this is cool, there's a TV show about it, let's go there, let's buy a house here. You're kind of like, farmers can make more money if they sell out, hey, but we don't want them to sell out.
Well, and that's exactly what happens. If you've seen the show Yellowstone, in one of those episodes, they're fighting these developers who are, potentially going to pay bajillions of dollars for that beautiful landscape. And they're like, yes, we want to do some form of like tourist attraction to keep people coming to our town, but just enough so that way we still have our stuff too, and you're not trying to take our land and turn it into an airport or a casino or a resort or whatever. And that's exactly
Yeah.
what they talk about. And I think that's the real battle is we want you to know what we're doing, to see how important of a job we have so we can feed the world. But we don't want to let you so in that you bombard and take over.
Yeah, it's true. Believe it or not, I have tried to watch Yellowstone and I can't get into it, which is so weird because I love our industry so much. I can't do the Yellowstone thing. So I've never even seen the episodes. I try. Everybody's like, how do you not watch Yellowstone? I'm like, I don't know. I love agriculture more than anything. I just can't get into the show. Isn't that funny?
No, you're good. I've done the same thing with other shows, and they're like, "You've never seen this?" I'm like, "No, like never seen an episode of Gilmore Girls before. Never seen."
Me neither.
It's
No,
like I
all
don't
the
know.
all the mainstream stuff. I can't get into Tiger King. You know what I mean? I've
No,
never
God,
got
no,
into Tiger
no,
King.
no, no.
But stuff like that people went nuts over. But yeah, Clarkson's Farm is good though. I watched that show, and that show is really good. Do you watch Clarkson's Farm?
No, I've never seen that one either.
You got to watch it. It's on Amazon Prime, I think. But yeah, it's like this guy's like one day he just wakes up and like, I'm going to be a farmer, and then it's like a very realistic show of just how the struggles are, like the things you don't think about. You're like, well, how hard can it be? And it's like, oh, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'll put that one on my list. And
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, these are such good topics, and I know we didn't really dive super deep into them, but I just wanted to bring some awareness, bridge at least a little bit of the gap between some of the myths or misconceptions around, like I said, more so like the human infrastructure. I mean, here on the AgriMinds podcast, we talk about our personal and our professional development, and I think that when we understand or start to see why certain things happen with the people in or out of our industry, it can help, like I mentioned at the beginning, empower more people to explore a career in our industry, but also say, oh, those were fears that were holding me back from maybe stepping out of the industry as well. And that doesn't devalue you, that doesn't remove your connection or take away your experience or your background because you decided to step out of the industry either. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time to be on this episode and joining me again on the AgriMinds podcast.
Yeah, you too. I'm all about unification, not division, right? Like there's no us versus them in anything. It doesn't have to be, you know. It's like just because you do come from egg or you don't, or you get in or you get out, like who cares? Like at the end of the day, anybody can do anything they want as a career path and there should be no judgment.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you as well. Thanks for having me.